And welcome back to part two of our journey through the organelles and parts of the cell. We ended last time, I believe, on the ribosomes, but I could be lost on that. Hopefully you remember better and it's in your notes. So we're going to continue to make our analogies to the cell being a city and work our way through the last final organelles and identify whether they're found in plants, animals, or bacteria. So now we're going to talk about the chloroplast, not a boroplast, as Billy Madison would say. They're actually one of the coolest organisms on Earth, and they provide us all our food on Earth. Like, they really pretty much provide us with all our food on Earth. There's a few bacteria that might get us a little food and some chemotrophs, but these chloroplasts are responsible for everything we eat, from a cow to that delicious crab I'm going to have tonight to my spinach salad, although spinach is directly eating chloroplast where the cow ate chloroplast. Here is a picture of a plant cell, and inside you see all these green little sacs floating around. These are chloroplasts filled with a green color called chlorophyll, and they take energy from the sun and use that energy to turn carbon dioxide in the air into sugar that we can eat. And then that sugar can become fat or proteins or all kinds of stuff, and that is how it makes our food. So chloroplasts are really awesome. They're only found in plants and some bacteria and algae. We'll talk about algae later in the semester, but for now, let's just say they're found in plants. And as I just said, they're going to transform light into usable energy, and that usable energy is stored in something called glucose. Really, what they do is they take CO2 and they use the energy from light and they store it in carbon dioxide bonds that make glucose. Yum, I love sugar. And so that process is called photosynthesis. We're going to talk a lot about it, but just for now, I want you to know chloroplasts are the organelles that do photosynthesis, and they provide us with sugar. Okay, so they take energy from the sun and use that energy to turn carbon dioxide into sugar. Glucose is a fancy word for sugar. Similar to the chloroplast is everybody's favorite organelle, the powerhouse of the cell, the mitochondria. Similar in size to a chloroplast. Right down here is the really more complicated looking mitochondria, but you see tons of them swimming around in cells, and they got this cool little bean pattern with like a maze inside of it. And these mitochondria, we call them the powerhouse of the cell because they are going to take that sugar that is made from plants, and we're going to turn that sugar, we're going to turn it into usable energy called ATP, and it provides all the electricity for our city, or all the energy that our cell needs to use, but usable energy like electricity. So I like to think of them as the power plant, providing stuff to charge my cell phone, turn the street lights on, things like that. Mitochondria are found in all plant and animal cells. Oftentimes we don't think plants have them, but they're loaded with mitochondria because they need lots of energy. Bacteria don't need as much energy. They don't have mitochondria. Actually, mitochondria are really actually just bacteria eaten by your cell. Kind of cool. Like I said, they are the power plant of the cell, and they're where a process called cellular respiration takes place. I want you to write that down to start getting used to it, and I'm sorry for that noise in the background. They obviously don't think I'm teaching. I'm going to pause here for a minute and be right back. They're making all kinds of noise here at the school. So yeah, the mitochondria, I want you to write down cellular respiration and know that in cellular respiration, glucose, which is sugar, is turned into a usable energy we're going to call ATP. I'm not going to get too far into this now, but this is coming up in about 2 units, and it's going to be a major part of our semester, and it's a major part of life, turning sugar into usable energy. I like to think of it as the same as we get our electricity from coal for the most part, but if I threw a bunch of coal in your backyard, I don't think you'd be able to charge your cell phone with it. I need a power plant that turns it into electricity like my ATP. So sugar's like the fuel for the power plant. The power plants are mitochondria, and then the power plant makes electricity so I can plug my phone in. ATP is kind of like our electricity. And the mitochondria is awesome. It is the powerhouse of the cell. It's squiggly like this to increase something called surface area to make sure we have way more reactions going on and way more energy being made. That leads us to one of our last two organelles. So this is going to be a much shorter lecture. We have our vacuoles. These are found in animals and plants, but mostly found in plants. You rarely find them in plants. So I've said just found in plants for our purposes. They're not very common in animals, very common in plants. And what they do is they store supplies. In animals, they store more like sugars and stuff like that. In plants, they mostly store H2O, which is water. So here's a plant cell. It's huge vacuoles all over, takes up a lot of the cell, lots of water in the plant cell. And that leaves me with one question for you. Why would plants need more vacuoles to store water than animals? I want you guys to think about that question at home right now. I know it's hard when it's online to like actually pause and think, but it's important that we do. And just come up with an answer. You don't have to be right. You guys are geniuses in your own way. Just why would a plant need to store more water than, say, an animal? Speaking of which, I'm parched. I'm thirsty. You guys looking at the screen, I'm thirsty and my cup is empty. How can I get, oh, I'm going to go to the drinking fountain and get more water, or maybe down to the river. Oh, that's great. Oh. Gosh. Thirsty. I'm glad I was able to walk over there and get some water at the river. But if I was a plant, could I walk to get the river? What do I have to wait for if I'm a plant? Might need rain, can get water out. So plants need to be able to store lots of water because they can't just walk down to where the water is. And to help survive when there hasn't been water for a while, it's a really good idea for them to store water. So that's why plants typically have more vacuoles. Very similar to a vacuole is the lysosomes. Very similar structure. They're surrounded by a membrane, same membrane that's on the outside of the cell, all around the endoplasmic reticulum and the nucleus, and the Golgi bodies right here, and the mitochondria is right here. We have these lysosomes that float around in our cell, and they are super important because, for example, if I make a protein and it's bad, it's made wrong, it could kill the whole cell. But if I put it inside one of these little vacuoles, it doesn't touch the rest of the cell, and the vacuole will dissolve it, just eats it up and spits it back out into nice usable material that I can use to make something else. So any of our waste products or anything that goes wrong, we have too much of or need to reuse some materials, go into these lysosomes, which digest things using something called enzymes. We'll talk about these later. But enzymes, you find these in your laundry detergent that break your clothes down. So helps clean things, helps break things down. So lysosomes, they clean up the waste products and recycle the parts in the cell. That's what I really want you to understand about them. They are recyclers. Okay, and your cells, your body is awesome at recycling materials. So when something breaks, doesn't work, we just use lysosomes, we break it down into the building blocks of what it is and just remake it. So your cells are awesome recyclers. If we could learn to be more like that on our outside world, I think we'd be a lot better in this world. They just pretty much reuse everything they possibly can. And really the only time you have cellular waste that gets sent out, that is what happens when you pee. So when you urinate, that's your cellular waste leaving along with a bunch of water and some salts. Occasionally when you sweat, and then I guess carbon dioxide when you breathe out is also a cellular waste. But for the most part, that means we don't make a lot of waste as a cell, although I do pee a lot. You guys, that is it for our lecture. I will hopefully have a thing on the internet where you fill out just to get used to what these things look like in the cell. We will try to look at them in microscopes, but you can normally only see maybe some chloroplasts and a nucleus and maybe a vacuole here and there. So that is an animal plant cell. And the big thing I want you to know about a plant cell, it has a cell wall and one other organelle in here that the other cells don't have. I want you to think about that and what is it. And then here's our animal cell. So maybe compare and contrast these two. And that is it for your notes. That was a much shorter video. You probably still had to do both of them in the same day. But you guys have a great day. Make sure you answer your questions and submit them so you get credit for learning this. And make sure you wrote this all down in your notebook because we will be taking a picture of that soon. Have a wonderful day.